Health class taught us a surprising amount, and we went to a pretty bad school.
Yeah, I mean, it was because of health. Like, I knew how to put a rubber on and shit like that. Like,
Plus, it's like less awkward because in health class, when we all had to take turns putting condoms on the teacher, it was like if it was with your dad, it would be so much more awkward. Welcome back, everyone, to S1E1, the show where each week we pick a different sitcom, watch just the first televised episode, and forgetting anything we might know about the future run of that show, rate it and decide if it's a show we want to greenlight or cancel. This week we're going to be talking about Grounded for Life. Grounded for Life went 91 episodes over 5 seasons on Fox and then later moving to the WB. Today we're talking about episode 1, which was called Lily Be Good, originally airing January 10th, 2001. So to get things started, I'm Jay Gags. With me, as always, most of the boys, Nick, Gordo, and Joe. What's going on, guys?
Hello.
heyo.
You watch Oz? Ferg just started watching Oz this week.
I know.
He's so excited about it. What episode does Ferg miss? The one where they mention Oz. Fuck. You know what's interesting about this show? It's the tipping point of before the world changed.
Yes, I thought the same thing.
It's like right on the cusp. Like they're having things about like the cable box and the Skinamax and like is everything just got a little different right after this show. It'd be really interesting to see like the last season of it and compare it to the first.
Yep.
Just how society changed so much.
The very early 2000s, I feel like, are going to be kind of like a lost era. And there's so many things that are distinct about it. Like the way this show is shot is very like of that time.
You know what it's like? It's like Malcolm in the Middle.
I was going to say that.
Yes.
Malcolm in the Middle spawned a bunch of parodies that basically just like ripped off their style.
Because they're not studio audience sitcoms, but they're like set up like a studio audience sitcom, but they're not filmed like one.
Yeah.
And they have weird interludes that are shot all chaotic.
Right, yeah.
And a lot of wacky guitar riffs.
I feel like the 2000s are like, you can find a lot of the 70s into the early 80s and so on for like 90s into the 2000s. But like the early 2000s seem to be standing alone entirely. You see a lot of it in sitcoms, I've come to find out.
We might not be removed enough from it to see it,
20 years now. It's like,
well, this is over 20 years now.
Well, if you go like late 70s, even to the 90s, right? Like using Sherman Hemsley as an example, right? If you look at the Jeffersons and then you look at Amen, they're the same format, right? It's 15 years later, but everything seems the same. And then you go 5 years, 10 years later, and then it's stuff like this, and then into The Office, and like everything feels much different now. So it's like weird when you see a TV show that's done like a 70s sitcom. Like it genuinely feels like a throwback because so few people do it.
And guys, I just want to remind everyone really quick, go to s1e1pod.com. That's where you can find all the links to our social media, everywhere to listen to us. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe to all that stuff. But S1E1pod on Instagram and Twitter, that's where you can interact with us there. So go ahead and do that. To continue on and talk about Grounded for Life specifically, guys, remembrance of the show, did you guys watch a lot of it in its original run?
I watched it. I've seen an episode or two, but I could not tell. Who made me get the member berries is the mother. I don't know who the mother is on the show, but I remember her on the show because she was that hot mom.
Saw it in passing a bunch. I imagine it was in syndication because I don't think I was watching it. Well, maybe I was, honestly. But the uncle, the dude who's from, like Pineapple Express.
Super bad.
Yeah, he always gets
John
me.
Leguizamo.
Two.
Well, I mean, he's got such a crazy career too because he's in like so many weird things too. Like he's in Goodfellas, right? People from Goodfellas keep popping up. And he's in Detroit Rock City that we talk about fairly often, oddly, on this show. Like
he's always kind of the same character,
The
too.
Departed. He's great in The Departed.
Who is he in The Departed?
He's the cousin who he does the drug deals with at first when Leonardo DiCaprio
Oh,
is
that's
trying
right.
to...
Holy shit, yeah. No, but I always liked that guy.
This was your pick, right?
It was, yeah. And I only picked this show because it was one of the commercials we saw on Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
That's right.
And I was like, holy shit, I forgot about the show. And I'm pissed Ferg's not here because the main character, whose name is escaping me.
His character name or his real name?
His real name.
The dad?
Yeah.
Donald Logue.
He is in, I believe, at least one of the Blades, which Ferg is a huge fan of. He was a vampire in one of the Blade movies, so
Oh, that makes sense.
I'm bummed Ferg's not here.
He's in a million things too. And Gordo, I know where your member berries are from, and I laughed so hard when I realized this. So Megan Price, who plays the mom, I immediately remembered her recently because we watched all of that show with The Ranch.
Okay.
The Netflix show, and that guy Brad, the kid Brad in this is in The Ranch as well, weirdly. But do you know who she is? She's the love interest in Larry the Cable Guy Health Inspector, a movie that you had the poster of on your goddamn wall in your apartment for years.
Wow.
She is, but was she anything else?
You need more than the girl from the poster that was like in your room forever?
Yeah, she literally was on your wall, like hugging Larry the Cable Guy for like 3 years.
No, but there's got to be something else I remember her from.
She was right above where you kept your pile of what were the Wendy's burgers we all ate at your apartment all the time because they just come out. Baconators. Yeah, the pile of Baconators was under her in your apartment for years.
Oh, is that the apartment with the sheet that I had for a door?
To be fair, I have one of those too. So
she actually has a pretty small, amount of acting credits. She's not in a ton of stuff.
Was she in Unhappily? She wasn't in Unhappily Ever. Like,
you know what I think it is? I think she might look like somebody else.
She might.
I'm not really sure because she was in like one episode of 20 different shows and then a regular on this one, and there's really not much else.
It's like this and The Ranch were the two big things.
And she did 91 episodes of Grounded for Life. She did 17 episodes of Late Line, which I've never even heard of.
No.
So, she was on the Drew Carey Show for 2 episodes.
Yeah, I feel like she pops in as like love interest on TV shows.
She was in Saved by the Bell New Class.
I probably did see that. That comes up often too. I liked the New Class.
And then 1 episode of Quantum Leap, which you've probably also seen her in.
I did have that noted. She's from I think the last season.
Yeah.
Drew Carey. That's it.
That could be it. It was only 2 episodes.
No, yeah, I don't. Well, who knows? Yeah, who knows?
I loved me some Drew Carey.
I know.
We all do.
That's a show that we definitely need to cover at some point. There's so many shows that I think we all just think someone else will pick, so we don't.
Yeah.
It's like you don't want to waste your pick because you know someone else will eventually do it.
I've honestly held off on the Drew Carey Show for so long because I've been actively looking to find it somewhere to watch, even illegally. But that's one of those shows where there's so much music that even Drew Carey was like, it's never going to happen. But they made the Wonder Years work, so hopefully
when
they
we do our
eventually.
Secret Santa, let's all just buy each other the Drew Carey box set.
There used to be those bootleg websites where you could buy like every show and somebody would burn you a DVD of it, but that seems like it's probably not a very big market anymore.
Everything's findable somewhere. That show is so big that it's somewhere. You'll find it. We might as well get into the episode itself. So it starts with just like the logo, which is like over just the scene that's already in progress, and like a guitar riff. There's a lot of these like quick guitar riff things that happen.
Do you know who it is?
No, I didn't know it was someone specific. I never looked it up.
Yeah, so the entire show is scored by the 2 guys from Ween.
What?
No
Yeah,
shit.
remember that band Ween, like Chocolate and Cheese? Yeah, those 2 dudes. So the reason that every second of the show is like is because like the 2 dudes from Ween. Like, I don't know if they got this gig after they did like the Orgasmo song or something, but yeah, when I like looked up because I was like, the score is really interesting for a TV show. It was like, oh, it's the Ween guys.
It does fit the show, though.
It does fit, yeah. Did you guys see all the weird wrestling stuff about this show?
Yeah, there's like wrestling stuff in the background in almost every episode.
There's a Lou Thez picture on their wall in the living room, which is pretty amazing.
Did they get into a reason for that?
No, they never explain it. And I guess one of the kids later on always has WWE stuff in his room.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing somebody on the cast or production team just really likes wrestling.
They said the last few episodes of those shows run, they flipped the pillow over those. So I wonder if like they were like, hey, stop using our stuff.
I bet it was more that they were like, oh, hey, it's 2006 and wrestling is fucking abysmal right now and we don't even want to support it.
Could also be part of it.
Also, Jay, I noticed this on the IMDb trivia. This is the only show to have ever switched networks mid-season. It switched from Fox to, what'd you say? The WB? Middle of a season.
Like it was immediately picked up. That's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were 2 unaired episodes because of it. It was almost like they're like, no, we don't like it. We'll start from this one.
I wonder if those are on like a DVD or something.
Yeah. Interesting though. Yeah. All right. So while this first scene's happening, we just see like, it's like a shot of a kid's foot and he's standing on top of a table and he's kicking over like a potted thing of flowers and some other stuff onto the floor. And it pans out and you see it's 2 kids who are like playing Floor is Lava and basically destroying the entire room. It's funny now because like Floor is Lava has become like a big thing now because there's like a Netflix show based around it.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, we've always played it as kids.
It's a pretty interesting show, Joe. You'd like it.
Yeah, that seems intriguing.
It's an easy watch, and because I now have a good opportunity to do it, season 2 just came out, and there's an episode with a few AEW guys, Orange Cassidy, Chris Statlander and I think Chuck Taylor are one of the teams that have to play Floor is Lava.
I would watch that.
Yeah, it's like one of my niece's favorite games to play too, but I think that's just something that is a forever thing, right? Like
Yeah.
when you'd be at the supermarket and there'd be different colored tile floors and you would be like, all right, we're not going to step on the orange ones.
Oh, I never called it Floor is Lava.
What'd you call it?
I didn't have a name for it. I just did weird like steps.
It makes it even harder to explain.
Yeah.
Like, Gordo, what are you doing? I don't know.
Without the risk of burning your feet, what is this game?
Well, yeah, I would just step like over the lines and I'd not step in certain ones, which I guess is what Floor is Lava is, but I never called it that. No one
Right.
ever told me this is what that game is.
Yeah, they're like I said, destroying this fucking living room. The mother walks downstairs. Her name's Claudia, by the way, because she hears all the noise. And when the kids are explaining what they're doing, she hops up on the couch with them. And I'm thinking, wouldn't you fucking kill them right now? Like,
That's what I thought too. They're just like kicking lamps off of tables.
yeah.
Yeah, if they were just playing and making noise, I can see the mom coming down and being like, okay, let's have fun. But you have to sweep up broken lamps now. Like, that's
Yeah.
an anger moment.
Just to talk about the house itself for a bit. It's weird. It's not as typical sitcom house because it's a little more cramped. It feels like more of a real house.
Yeah, it feels realistic,
It
which I
does.
really love. It feels like they would live in that house.
Do we know where this takes place? I didn't catch it.
They say eventually, I think they say Staten Island.
Oh, Staten Island. They say it in the show, yeah.
They
Okay,
say-
yeah.
Well, we know. Well, actually, technically, we only know that the father grew up in Staten Island, so there's a chance it's not there, but I'll assume that that's where they live.
Yeah, it seems like these are the people who like grow up, get married, and don't leave
Right.
their town, you know?
So one of the boys tells her that her foot got burnt when she came down, and he's trying to draw a line on her face with a marker. And if you look at their faces, they all have like thick black lines like under their faces.
They feel like it's like war paint.
They're like, yeah, but it's more like tally marks. I thought it was like war paint at first until it gets explained, but it's just like a scoreboard on their face.
Those are washable markers. At least it wasn't a Sharpie.
True. And mom asks where Lily is because she's supposed to be watching them. So I guess they have the three kids. It's the two boys and Lily, who's the daughter, who's like more a focal point. The two boys are kind of like, they're always in the background, but like the two of them don't seem to have, at least in this episode, different character traits. Like we just covered
Yeah.
Charles in Charge recently, and like those two boys were polar opposites, but these two kids they very much complement each other. They just mirror one another the whole time.
This also seems like the kind of show where like those kids will become centralized characters as they get older. You know, sometimes in sitcoms, it's like we've got these two little kids, and then once they're like teenagers, you're like,
Yeah, it's
oh,
more of
we
an
can, like-
investment.
yeah, you can develop a story around them now.
Did you guys happen to see the interesting tidbit about the girl who plays Lily?
No.
Just that she's a Scientologist.
So, oh, that sucks. I don't know how IMDb trivia works. If anybody can add it, if it needs to be fact checked
I
in any way.
think so because it's usually just insane shit.
The character. Oh, I'm an idiot. Never mind.
What was it? What were you gonna say?
So I thought it said the person who plays the character, but apparently the character Lily was born at Live Aid Philadelphia in 1985 and delivered by Run DMC. And I
You thought that was a real fact.
That was the fucking actress that did it. So, okay, this makes more sense then.
What an amazing story that would be.
We need a reverend. And he's like, I'm coming. I'm coming.
Is there a jam master in the building?
When she says, she's supposed to be watching the two of you, they say, like, well, we don't need a babysitter. And no sooner do they say that, one of them falls onto the floor. And then he gets up and he says that he burned his hiney. And that's when Lily and the dad walk in. Dad, who's his name is Sean. And she's heading like straight up the stairs, like, because they're coming from outside. And the two are arguing. And then Lily tells her dad that he violated her civil rights. And he says, no, it's more like your right to privacy. The son tells him that he's standing in lava, but he's pretty quick to reply and say that he has titanium boots on when he chases Lily up the stairs, which I got to say, it's like being around kids who play that game. You do
I've used
things
that.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've used that move.
Yeah, those are the lines like, when this beer's done, or these boots are titanium, or I have super armor, you can't chop my arm off. Like, yeah, you just like whip them out to like not get involved.
Does titanium not melt?
I did not look into that. I don't know the titanium's tensile strength against lava, but that might be worth looking up.
I don't know as a 36-year-old man, so I assume that these children don't know either. So it's good enough to at least give you a pass to run up the stairs.
So titanium melts at 3,034 degrees,
That's pretty hot.
and lava is 1,300 to 2,200 degrees. So he's right. He's good.
Great.
Wow.
His feet would cook, yes, but they would not catch fire, I guess.
See? All right, we're learning something. Science.
What'd you guys do today? I learned about titanium and lava. It sounds like such a little kid thing to say.
Oh, you guys do a science podcast. Exactly. So Claudia tries to yell up at him to remind him that they're going to be late for dinner. But in the process, she steps off the couch and the son yells, lava, and draws a line on her face. Now, you could tell that she's dressed up to go out. She has like a nice dress up and some makeup. A nice dress on. I said a nice dress up. She now grunts at him and picks him up and like lays him on the floor, which, to him is lava. And it just like the scene kind of ends with the camera panning on him while he's like shaking and screaming like, lava, lava, I'm burning.
If any one of our mothers was getting ready to go out and we drew with marker on her face, we wouldn't exist anymore.
Different scenario.
My mom would draw on my face with a wooden spoon.
Yeah.
I believe my father's belt would be on my face.
Yeah, that's a dangerous move.
One interesting thing about the show, too, that I think makes sense as you start watching it is that the backstory of the parents is that they had their first kid and got married when they were 18. So they're only like 32 living in all this chaos. So they're like crazy young.
But I will say, and we'll touch on it more as we go along, but I think one of the problems I had with the show is that the parents are like, they're fun parents, but they're not parents enough.
Yeah.
But I think that's because they're 32.
The original name for this show was Young Parents.
Really?
And networks didn't like it.
That's a terrible name.
Then they switched it to the grandfather's like monologue, his first monologue when he's giving like the birds and the bees talk. The show was going to be called Sperm, Egg, Now This. And the networks were like, no. And then they settled
That's
on
another terrible name.
Grounded for Life. So I guess it went the way it should have.
Grounded
Grounded for Life kind of makes sense.
It's, I don't know. I get that they're young parents, but even if we're still talking at this point, they're only a few years younger than us. And if I walked downstairs and I saw like my kids were kicking things onto the floor and legit breaking them, I wouldn't be like, oh, time to play Floor is Lava.
Yeah, I'd be throwing haymakers.
Yeah, but imagine too that at this point, right? So they're 4 years younger than us. So that would be if you went downstairs and your kid was down there doing that, but they were 18 years old.
Yeah.
That is the fuck up in your head, right? And like my parents had kids pretty early, but I mean, they were 23 when they had me. So like I had younger parents, but not that young. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you figure they would have been, by the time you're the age of these two kids, the sons, they're probably not even as old as those two are. And
Right.
they're old, and you didn't get away with that kind of stuff.
Oh God, no.
So now we get into like the actual intro of the show, which was just, it's more of that guitar riff that they play throughout, the show, just like kind of what's music in that same style. And they're just a family playing basketball.
It's kind of an odd choice.
It was strange, yeah.
It was weird. It was just multiple shots of them all playing basketball together.
It was like they forgot to shoot an intro and they were like, well, we've got a basketball, so.
Like, I get the idea of having the family all doing one thing. Like, it works so well in Roseanne when they're just having dinner and going around in a circle. But every family has dinner. It's like a weird thing to be like, oh, it's an entire family basketball game. It didn't seem relatable to me, at least.
With Grandpa.
Yeah, with Grandpa.
You guys didn't play basketball with your grandparents?
No.
Not enough, unfortunately.
There may have been a time where I shot a ball around or something, but there wasn't like a big 3-on-3 checking game going on.
Grandpa didn't dunk on you?
No. My grandpa also didn't invent the jump to conclusions board like theirs did. So he's got that going on for him.
We get into the next scene and the two sons who their names are Jimmy and Henry. I'm never going to really decipher one from the other at any point. Cause like I said, they were pretty interchangeable.
Are they twins?
No, they're different ages.
Oh, are they different ages? They look about the same age. They're pretty much the same exact height and everything. So, but anyways, yeah, they're in the living room and they're with their uncle, we mentioned him already. Kevin Corrigan, who
Is in everything.
Joe, you mentioned Detroit Rock City. Did you see what his credit name was in Detroit Rock City?
No, I didn't. I just remember him for Detroit Rock City.
He's credited as Beefy Jerk #1. I was like, and all I can ever think of is Superbad when he's like, "Hey, you were dancing with Jacinda."
You know what I noticed? I've seen him in a lot of things, but I noticed in this show specifically, he has hints of, oh God, I just had the guy's name and now I lost it. His voice is commonly talked about.
Rob Reiner.
No. What, Gordo?
John Lovitz?
No.
Emilio Estevez.
What? Who does his voice?
Who?
No,
Emilio
I'm saying...
Estevez? Gordon Bob.
No, Dad. Fuck you. I think is the only impersonation of his voice you could probably do.
Oh my God.
I want to ride this out. I want you to
Hold
figure
on,
it out.
I can figure it out.
Nick's having a stroke right now.
I can't help
It's
you.
like a super famous actor, and I cannot. Christopher Walken. Holy shit! I had it, and then I lost it. He's got that. Sometimes has that weird inflection like Christopher Walken has.
There is something different about the way he enunciates things, for sure.
He does enunciate things interestingly.
He would be like a level 1, though. Like, he's not full walking.
Yeah, he's Christopher Crawlin.
A sailor, good man.
I'll be damned.
I do love too that later on in the episode they do the classic sitcom thing where they're like, "Quick, make him young, make his mullet longer." That's such a good that works. It tracks.
I mean,
easy.
it works especially in the early 2000s, going back a little bit. So.
Right.
Yeah. And so his name, by the way, is Eddie. And he's hooking up a cable box in the living room. And they're like, oh, Dad said that, those were too expensive. And he's telling them how him and their dad live in 2 different worlds. And then they're like, is that box stolen? And then he's like, that's a word from your dad's world. And I don't know, something about the way anything Eddie says, I really like. It was kind of my favorite part of the episode was just Eddie's stuff.
Now, he is the father's brother or the mother's brother?
The father's
Father's
brother.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I don't think they ever actually mentioned it, did they? Did they refer to
It
him as
does.
the brother?
No,
Okay.
they do when they talk
All right.
about growing up.
And I think when the grandfather walks in right here, I think he calls him Pops right away. I guess you could have done that if it was your in-law, but I guess it'd be a little weird if it's your in-law, not your...
Your brothers.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, that's my sister's father-in-law. Like, you wouldn't really call him Pops, but they went into it. Plus, they were talking, like, later when they talk about Mrs. Delvecchio and stuff. They're talking about their although they could have grown up together, so it wouldn't have mattered, I guess.
And we were saying about it earlier, you couldn't even have stolen cable now. You could steal streams of things. You can download shows, but you couldn't just get terrestrial cable stolen anymore.
Did you guys have that stuff when you were a kid?
Stolen cable?
I had a black
Yeah,
box.
for a little while we had one.
Interestingly enough, my grandmother had one. I didn't have one, but for some reason, my grandmother had one.
My grandparents did. So I want to say everyone in the town over from us had one. Like, everyone. I don't know if the cables were a little different.
Brandywine was full of criminals.
Yeah. And then in my house, we had like something similar, but like we had a hybrid. Like, it was like cable. We had cable, but this did a little bit more for it, but we didn't have everything.
Your dad got the brown box.
Basically, he was too cheap. It was like $5 more for the good one. So he was like, no, we'll take that one.
I will say the good thing about those though is you could flick up and down on as a channel 1 that was pay-per-view.
There was A and B. You could like switch from A to B.
Yeah, if you did that on whatever channel it was on the pay-per-view, you could get the wrestling pay-per-view sometimes for like 20 minutes at a time.
So so my grandparents had all the pay-per-view channels 100%.
Like unlocked completely, yeah.
Yeah, so I would have to go to their house sometimes to watch wrestling pay-per-views when I was a kid.
I used to have to squiggly porn WCW pay-per-views when I couldn't get over to my neighbor's house to watch. And I would just have to listen and try to catch, instead of catching a titty through there, I'd have to catch like a body slam. Or
You just catch
something.
like Johnny B. Bad. Like, oh, so good.
When we were, when like at that era, my grandparents' black box had all those channels, the dirty ones. But whatever we had in my house, I don't know if it was the parental settings or again, my dad not paying for the good one. We didn't have any of that stuff.
I didn't have that either.
Why does Jason want to move in with the grandparents? I don't get it.
We had that in our black box. We had the Penthouse channel, I think, and the Spice channel.
I just remember them. They were like channels. If you were on the B side, it was like channels like 23, 24 or something like that.
If you remember, when we were younger, the Spice channel would just randomly be free for a weekend, regardless of if you paid for it or not. And if there was children in the house, the Spice channel would just be free for a weekend. Yeah.
It was like when HBO does those like free weekends.
Yeah.
It's like, here's some free porn this weekend.
The last time I thought about something like that was, but we're at some sleazy hotel and like as a joke, we're like, oh, put the like porn channel on. We're all just like drinking and partying or whatever. And then like an hour later, we realized that the porn channel was on a DVD menu screen. And then we realized that there was just a TV in the office that like would put a DVD in. And if the guy wasn't paying attention, he'd have to like start it over again. So you can see the whole thing, like click over, like you see the thing go and be like, oh, start again. It's like, how fucking, this was like less than 10 years ago. Like, what was happening?
That's brilliant. And
Bizarre.
you're getting charged all sorts of money.
Well, you didn't have to pay for it. It was also just on a channel.
Oh,
It was like a complimentary like 1994 porn DVD channel. It was very strange.
Right here's when the grandfather walks in, and this is when we find out that he's now going to babysit because Lily is apparently missing.
is that Wilford Brimley?
Actually, wait, Lily came in, so I don't know why the grandfather has to babysit now, other than she's mad at the dad.
Yeah, she's gonna be hiding in her room. But,
Yeah.
and no, Gordon, that's not Wilford Brimley. That's Richard Reel.
Oh, okay.
You would know him from Office Space or The Fugitive or Joe Dirt.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's in a million things. Do you know what he's in, though? That's for sure coming soon. He plays Ed Rooney in the TV show version of Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And there's no way we're not covering that someday.
I didn't know that existed.
I've got like a running list of all these movies that became TV shows. Like that and Animal House are going to be fun ones.
I want to do kind of like a month block sometime. Maybe like, whatever month the Oscars is.
Oh, that's good thinking, yeah.
Maybe we'll do like all television adaptations of movies or something.
I really want to do the Gung Ho one as well.
Anyways, he's talking about bringing discipline into the house and how there's going to be spankings. And the kids are like, what if we don't do anything wrong? And he goes, no, there will be spankings. And I'm like, okay, let's get creepy grandpa out of the house.
The grandpa was the best character, hands down, in this whole show.
See, I'm the complete opposite. I think he's the worst character.
Oh, I love him in this. I'm with Gordo.
I'm with Jay. He didn't annoy me. I just didn't think he needed to be there.
He was too unrealistic.
Yeah.
I think that was my problem.
When he later on says that the kid Brad, he doesn't like him because his grandfather sidestepped going to Korea by acting like a fruit, I laughed so hard at that line. Like, just didn't expect it. And I love, like, the older guy still holding a grudge at somebody getting out of the war. Like, it was such a great fucking moment.
It's funny because, like, we always say, like, would that line work today? And I don't think, like, it could, but you need, like, an older character. Like, it has to be someone who's perceived as out of touch to be able to say it.
I think if you had an older, out of touch type character grandfather and he said the same joke but about Vietnam, you could probably make it would still work. Like it's still culturally inappropriate. It's still not PC, but you'd expect the character to do it.
We cut to the kitchen where Claudia is. She's telling Sean that that his dad's there. And while that's happening, like you see Sean like racing through the phone book and he dials a number and he's talking to this man named Mr. O'Keefe. And Sean's trying to sound like he's a teenager and he's asking the guy who picks up if he could talk to his son Brad, and he's like, oh, my name, it's Teddy Pendergrass. And he's like laughing, yeah, like the singer. And then he just starts like nervous laughing and goes, wrong number, and hangs up. So I looked up Teddy Pendergrass, and like he's like a famed musician, but not enough that he's a guy you would reference for a show.
That's why I love the joke. When he said it, I laughed so hard because I was like, that's the perfect level of celebrity to say. Like it's like it wouldn't have worked if he was like, this is Michael Jackson. You know what I mean? But it works so well as Teddy Pendergrass.
See, no, I think you need somewhere in between that because most of the people watching that episode are not going to catch the reference.
I mean, I guess that's true. I mean, he was really big in the early 80s, so I guess for them, it would have been a song from when he was a kid.
What did he do?
His big one was a song called I Don't Love You Anymore. That's kind of like a disco song, but he had like a bunch of songs that were like,
Love TKO was his most listened to on Spotify. Double check that. And he was in a group called like Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes before he went solo, and like they had a few hits on like of their own.
They were like a soul group, I think, right?
I think you need to go, just like a little bit higher in name value. Like if you're like, oh, this is Billy Ocean, I think that works.
Yeah, I would say the one thing that would work on your side of it is if you said somebody who was a famous person but had a name that wasn't so wildly, like I've never met anybody named Pendergrass. You know what I mean? Like his name jumps out at you because you know the singer. Nobody knows. I don't know how common of a surname that is, but if you were like, oh, it's Rick Springfield, or if it's, like you said, Billy Ocean or somebody like that, Daryl Hall.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rob, I just think that was the fact that I had to Google it to see who he was threw me off the joke a little bit.
But again, this is also 20 years ago.
True. I'd be interested to like survey my mom and be like, hey, do you know who like Teddy Pendergrass is? And see if she could pull up the answer.
People listening, if you think Teddy Pendergrass is a good reference point or not, anybody who's older than us. I mean, like I knew who he was, but I don't know enough about the guy's discography. You know what I mean?
But from there, now the wife is trying to figure out what's going on because he's acting strange. As that happens, one of the sons walks in and Sean immediately hands him a phone. He's like, here, tell the guy who picks up that you want to speak to Brad. So now the phone's dialing, and when the guy picks up, the son's going, hey, is Brad there? And then when he asks who it is, he just gets really nervous and says, my dad's making me do this, and he runs away. And the way that like it was shot and seeing him like hovering over him, did you guys get like those big like Billy Madison vibes? Like, I was just ready for the dad to go, you blew it.
Yes, it feel very Billy Madison.
No, I didn't at the time, but I, definitely see where you're coming from.
I could see it, yeah.
Was anybody else surprised? And I thought the joke was made better as the episode went on when you realized that they're the next door neighbor and they know them very well. Like, it wasn't just like a friend from school and they sort of know him. It's like they share a fence. Like, that made that joke so much funnier than me, where it's like he calls up and tries to hide his voice. He's a guy he sees every fucking day.
So Claudia's like, what's going on with Billy O'Keefe? And Sean starts to explain that like him and Lily were studying earlier that day in the house. And then we get like this flashback cut. This is the first flashback cut of 70 flashback cuts in this episode.
Yeah.
It happens so much.
They say most of the episodes are flashbacks.
Yeah.
It's like, it's almost shot like a Family Guy episode.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah. It was a lot, but this is the first time it happens. And you see the two studying and like Brad gets a paper cut and meanwhile, Sean and Eddie are like trying to get the cable set up. And Sean's like, yes, they're naked people on my TV. And Eddie's like singing like 9 channels of Skinamax. And
He is like sing-songy.
yeah. And the daughter Lily's like, Dad, do you mind not watching porno while we're studying? And then Brad gets another paper cut. And then we flash forward again.
Hot Pockets. I just want to say you yell Hot Pockets every time they do it.
Claudia says that Brad's there all the time. Like, what's the big deal? And Sean's like, no, it wasn't a big deal until he realized that Lily likes Brad. And Claudia like can't believe it. And there's a lot of like, are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Are you sure? Yeah. And it's like they did that a bit. And then Sean starts telling a story. Flashback again. And now we see Sean walking down the street with his dog and a bucket of chicken. And he's that I guess he bought for the kids to have that night when they went out to dinner. And the dog stops to go to the bathroom. And while he's waiting, he notices a car nearby and there's like 2 people making out. And he's like really excited about that and like ties the dog to the fence to go watch them.
It's a weird moment.
What was he going to do if it wasn't his daughter?
Just rub his dick, I guess.
It was weird, yeah.
He was like, oh yeah. And he like he gets so excited to walk over.
Imagine retelling that story to your wife, because that's what we're doing.
Yeah,
right?
like take the fact that like she has to be like, wait, why were you doing that to begin with?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like if I told that to my wife, she'd slap the shit out of me.
Yeah. The story would be like to your wife, like, what happened? Be like, I walked by and saw people having sex in a car. Be like, what did you do? It's like, I kept on walking. I went like, hey-oh to myself and just kept going.
I just sat down and I watched. Yeah.
Work harder, boy.
I found a bench and I gave some pointers.
But yeah, so come to find out that the 2 people in the car was his daughter and this kid Brad. So like he panics and he like starts to walk away, but then he stops and he starts getting like mad about it. So he gets the bucket of chicken that he has in his hand. He just hurls it at the car. And then like, and then it cuts to like, you see the windshield from the outside perspective and you see the bucket like hit the windshield and everything splatter everywhere. Did you guys like notice like chicken shouldn't make that much of a mess, but there was like stuff smeared all over the window?
I think it was coleslaw.
He only bought a bucket of chicken.
Yeah, they go over this because he didn't have biscuits.
This argument later killed me, but you're probably right.
Yeah, we'll get into that when it comes up. But yeah,
it must be the greasiest chicken of all time.
I was gonna say because it just looked like they threw straight fat.
I thought it was rooster cum.
Is there a different consistency in rooster cum?
Yeah, Google it.
Let me just turn to my work computer here and Google that real quick.
Yeah, so then we flash forward again. It's Claudia laughing at the story. He's like, it's not funny. He's like, I didn't know what else to do. And she says, like, how is throwing chicken even an option? He's like, it was very traumatic. And, I was just walking down the street minding my own business and then flashback again to 2 seconds of them kissing. She's like, they were kissing. She's a teenage girl. It's inevitable. He's like, you don't understand. His hands were all like, rip, flashback again. And now you just see like the 2 of them like making out like a little more intensely. It's like a close up of them like using their tongues. It was like, I don't know. I talked about how much they're flashing back and forth. And I think that's a little bit of the times too, like the early 2000s, this did become more of a thing with the cuts back and forth.
I mean, that 70s show did this a lot too.
I mean, but this is when was this right around when Family Guy was super popular?
I think this predates it by a couple years.
I don't remember when Family Guy came out, but it's around this time. I think Joe's right though. I think this does predate it.
But we're talking like we're like 2 or 3 minutes into the episode and we're at like 5 cuts that go like back and forth and back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, it's just how the entire show is.
What I like, though, is when they do the cuts back, it's always an escalation. I do appreciate that when they cut back, it's usually like this terrible situation. And by the 3rd time they cut back in any scenario, it's way worse than it was the first time.
Yeah, they embellish the further it goes.
Right. Like they start making out and you like legitimately see tongues hitting tongues. Like it just goes from like A to Z pretty quick.
I like how the different perspectives get worse and worse. depending on who is also telling.
You
the
could tell
story.
every time someone tells a story and they cut back, it's from their perspective, so it's not quite the truth each time. When they cut back for the final time telling the story, Grandpa's walking through the kitchen now with the two boys, and they're all holding shovels. And Claudia's like, why are my children in a chain gang? And he explains that he's teaching them how to dig a hole, and they all head to the yard. So now, like, they follow them out there. So now it's like all of them outside. And he's going over like all the benefits of digging a hole.
I love this.
A good hole can serve a boy in a lot of ways.
It's funny how like the same character hits the two of us in complete opposite ways.
Well, to be fair, this conversation could be misconstrued.
Yeah, a good hole and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
My hole, Gordo's girlfriend.
Now they're outside and Sean heads over to the fence because apparently like Brad lives next door. I don't know if we knew that right away.
No, I think this is when you find out.
This is when you find out, and then the joke I think becomes a lot funnier.
I think the grandfather calls him the neighbor kid at one point before this.
Oh yeah, right as they go out. Yeah.
And so he goes up to the fence and he's like peeking over it and he's like whispering for Brad to come out. And he's explaining to his wife that Brad's their daughter's first boyfriend and he screwed this whole thing up. So he keeps whispering like, Brad, Brad. And then Eddie shows up behind them and he just goes, yo, Bradley.
It's so fucking loud.
You know, so now Sean jumps down because he doesn't want to get caught. And Eddie's like, you want to talk to him or not? And then the dad heads to the door, like Mr. O'Keefe. And Eddie's like, hey, Sean wants to talk to Bradley. He's like, okay, hold on. And he walks off. And while he's gone, Claudia's like, do you think Brad told his dad about what happened? And no sooner did that happen, he walks back out and now he's just throwing chicken at all of them.
Which means that the dad was like, he did what? And then made a conscious effort to then go down to the chicken store and buy his own bucket of chicken, waiting for the right moment to whip it at Donald Logue.
It was a little much.
My first laugh out loud moment at this show was when Eddie just started rifling chicken back over the fence.
Yeah.
I love too, Eddie's character is so solidified by the next scene where he's walking in, he's eating a piece of the chicken. Like that he wouldn't let a piece of the chicken go.
Did anybody else think that O'Keefe's father looked like a bootleg Julian from Trailer Park Boys?
I don't really see him well enough, honestly, to give you a good
look him up.
description of him. Yeah.
I thought he looked kind of like an older version of the dad from the Wonder Years.
You know what he's in? He's in A Mighty Wind. He's like the record producer they cut to who talks about Mitch and Mickey recording in the 60s before Eugene Levy goes crazy. And that's when I saw him, I was like, is that guy? And I looked it up and was like, oh, it is.
They all head back to the kitchen to avoid this chicken attack. Claudia says how he's a big fat wussy for being upset over this. And Sean's like, well, there was more than just chicken. And Eddie's like, biscuits? He's like, no. And he's like, so you still have the biscuits? No. Then where are the biscuits? There are no biscuits.
It's like the biscuits come with it. You'd have to go out of your way to tell them not to give them to you. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah.
So now we flash back again and we see the chicken getting thrown at the car, but only like from the perspective of Lily and Brad who are inside. And Lily's like, what's going on? And Brad turns the headlights on. And you just see like from like maybe 10 feet out, that's where Sean's standing and he's like breathing heavy, but like in a way that like you think he's going to turn into the Hulk.
He's like Wolf Manning it right there.
And Brad's like, oh, it's a crazy man. And she's like, no, it's my dad. So Brad screams and he's trying to run. Like, you were safe in the car. But he jumps out of the car and tries to run. And then Sean, like, grabs at him. And he's like, where are you going, lover boy? And then Brad's like, please don't kill me. And he starts to run. And then Sean tosses a piece of chicken at his head, which knocks him over.
Hits him right in the face.
Yeah.
A piece of fried chicken.
They filmed that great too.
They
The kid
did,
takes
yeah.
a good bump.
But like that, I don't think a human arm could throw a piece of chicken hard enough to knock someone over.
I don't know.
I don't think it's the force knocking you over. It's maybe just it kind of, disorients you a little bit while you're running.
Perhaps.
Let's test it out, Jay. You go full sprint and I'll throw a piece of chicken at your face. We'll see if you can stay on your feet.
I'm on 2 bad ankles. It's not going to take much. I feel like you would need like Roger Clemens to like huck a piece of chicken at you like that to knock you down.
No, Roger Clemens would have been in the car making out with the 14-year-old girl.
Oh,
Also true.
so Lily.
That's what I'm saying. He would have been Brad in this scenario.
In any event, Brad continues to run off after picking himself back up. And then the daughter walks up to her dad and she's like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, well, what the hell are you doing? There's like a back and forth, but Lily's sternness is kind of breaking her dad. So now he's like trying to explain himself, but Lily walks off. He's like, I was joking. And then the scene ends with her throwing a piece of chicken at him. There's a lot of chicken throwing in this episode.
A waste of a good fried chicken.
It's probably prop chicken. They probably kept using the same bucket over and over. If we flash back forward, And Claudia's like, oh my God, what have you turned into? And she's like, you know what? You're turning into Walt. Walt's their father. And Sean says that it was a momentary lapse and Lily just needs to understand that. And then Eddie goes back into, you guys were talking about, I can't believe you didn't get any biscuits. They come with the chicken. He's like, I didn't get any biscuits. He's like, look, I went out to get a bucket of chicken and I got a bucket of chicken. You would have had to ask them to specifically leave the biscuits out. That did get me. That was
It was one of my favorite lines of the show.
I think it was my favorite
Yeah.
line of the whole thing. Like I said, anytime Eddie spoke pretty much is what got me.
Because it was just so matter of fact. Like he wasn't like pointing the argument or like injecting himself. He was just kind of talking to himself.
Yeah, he's kind of thinking out loud. Like, he's like,
Yeah.
this doesn't make any sense. In the distance, you can kind of see Brad in the living room, the way that they shot, like they cut over. So Sean notices it and he's like going to chase him down. So the camera like follows him down like the back hall. And then he's like kind of sneaking up on where Brad is. Brad's trying to get out of the house, but before he can get there, Sean grabs him and has his hand over his mouth. And he's like, just relax. It looked like a hostage thing, you know, it was meant to look that way. And he's telling him to relax. He's like, I just want to talk to you, okay? Okay? Are you relaxed? All right? Relax. And then he releases his hand and he just goes, Dad! And he throws his hand over his mouth again.
And then shuts the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brad plays like a good scared kid.
But if you were calling for your dad, why wouldn't you just have your dad go over and get your book?
Yeah, it seemed like the smarter move would have been like, Dad, can you go next door and get my book bag?
Because then you wouldn't have this scene.
Yeah.
And this is fiction.
Yeah. There's a lot of sitcom stuff that happens in these, but it is our job to point these things out as we go over them. That is why we do this. He drags him over to the couch and he's like, I just want to apologize. He's like, so calm down. And like, he eventually lets go of him again. And then Walt asks, why are you mishandling the O'Keefe boy? And Eddie explains that, oh, he's the one who was trying to score with Lily. And then Walt says, you know, this wouldn't have happened if she was out in the back digging a hole. It's like, it's like, okay. Like, I don't know. I thought that felt a little flat.
Yeah,
to
I
me.
didn't like any of the hole.
Oh, I like the hole.
I'm pro hole.
Yeah, I'm pro hole.
My hole.
I just think we went back to the well a little too much with this one.
A little bit too much on a 22-minute episode.
I didn't get it the first time. Like the whole idea of like, these kids are going to go dig a hole. I was like, this is weird. And then they keep going back to it. It's like, it's just, I don't know. It's not realistic enough. And that's what took me out of it.
I think what they were going for was like, you know, digging a trench like as a soldier. Like, you know what I mean? Because this guy's already referenced Korea, right?
It was kind of like meant to be that way. Like,
But they didn't
that mindset.
explain that well enough,
Yeah.
I don't think.
But they did. They said, you know, we'll teach him.
Like discipline and it'll make them sweaty.
Yeah, it'll make him sweaty
It's
and
like, I want my boys sweaty before we give spankings.
and it'll be appreciate a warm bed.
I want a nice sweaty hole.
Which again, all of that too does make you feel like when he says he appreciated a nice warm bed, that's definitely a shell-shocked army thing, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
And the
Yeah.
Korean War was known for being notoriously cold.
It's all creepy stuff to me. He wants to spank them. He wants them in a warm bed. He wants them sweaty.
Yeah, usually it's me going down that hole again.
Right in the
you,
hole.
You know, maybe we need to make shirts that just say pro hole.
I'm coming around on the hole.
The hole was funny.
I don't know.
The hole was funny.
I don't find the hole funny.
See, you need like a character like that needs something to go to. And for an out of touch grandfather to go to digging a hole works.
It was like almost too simple. Like he could have had them do some sort of a like mundane chore, but I don't know. That was
Digging a hole is mundane.
I just kind of wish now though that he said, like, even though he mentioned Korea earlier, I wish he said like, you know, it'll warm bed at night. If he then ended one of those with like in the war.
Or just called it a foxhole.
Yeah, if he just mentioned that it was an army shell shock thing a little more versus us having to diagnose it, I think it would have worked better.
yeah. You know, Nick, I think you're right. Like even if he said foxhole, I think you would have been able to like make it more logical in your head, like why his brain's going there. But yeah, so Brad says he just wanted to get his book bag. He's not trying to get killed. Sean says, no, you're a guest. Don't worry. Like, and like he tells him not to go anywhere and asks Eddie to like sit and watch him, you know, so Sean can go up and find his daughter. Meanwhile, now while the two are sitting there, Eddie like puts his arm around him. He's like, you watch Oz?
I mean, as somebody who's rewatching Oz, I fucking died at this. What a great fucking line to say to a little
I
kid.
thought it was funny. I've never watched Oz, but being in a group chat with you guys and knowing that you guys are currently talking about watching Oz, like
It's a very weirdly timed reference. Yeah.
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 one that only us, the panel on the show, can appreciate, but no one listening would be like, oh, okay.
I'm gonna save this though. If I ever, you know, if I have kids or like somebody comes home with my niece and I get to sit down with them, I'm going to ask them someday if they watch Oz, knowing full well they will have no idea what that reference is.
Real quick, like, what is Oz? I've never heard or seen of it.
Oh, okay. So Oz was like the first real big HBO original show that takes place inside of a prison in New York. And it's like very, very graphic. And there's a lot of.
What year is this?
This is like 97
Oh,
to
okay.
2003.
I was gonna say, so this predates The Sopranos? Because like I always
Yeah.
thought that was their first big.
There were
hit.
people like I can't remember the actor's name who plays Carmela Soprano, but she's one of the main prison guards in it until she gets the role in The Sopranos and like leaves the show.
Interesting.
But like
okay.
basically anybody who was ever in The Sopranos, The Wire, or every like Law and Order is on Oz.
I'll have to
for a
check it out.
story
I think I
arc.
might like it.
I think you really would. It's really good. Kelsey won't be watching in bed anymore though, because one night she had really bad prison dreams, and now I have to watch it when she leaves. That's a legitimate thing that happened.
Joe's having really good prison dreams.
Better than hers.
So the next scene, he's walking Lily downstairs and he's like, "Oh, I got a surprise. It's going to make you really happy." And she sees Brad and then she turns to her dad and's like, "You live to humiliate me," and walks off. And he's like, "But it's Brad, like everything's cool." And she just like, she does that. She has a weird scream that she does a few times. I couldn't emulate it if I tried. It's like a grunty scream.
Yeah, it's a very good teenage girl scream that if any of us could imitate it, it'd be probably an issue.
Yeah, my throat's not going to do that.
Yeah.
But Jay, will your throat do a Bobcat Goldthwait impression?
We'll find out.
We're going to find out now, aren't we?
We are going to.
So Sean goes to follow her. It's leaving Brad and Eddie on the couch. And Brad tries to leave, but Eddie says like he's not going anywhere and offers him a mint. So now we cut to Claudia, who's chasing after Sean, who's chasing after Lily. And she asks where he's going. And he's like, "I just want to make things right with her." And she's like warning him, like, "Before you go, don't." And she's basically telling him, whatever you do is wrong because she's a teenage girl and you're her father. And he's like, "It's not like that. I'm not like a dad. I'm like a woohoo dad." And then he goes in and Lily's sitting on the counter in the kitchen. And he asks if why she's eating croutons. And she's explaining to him, "Well, I'm hungry and we don't have any chicken."
It's also a weird question. Like, I eat croutons as a snack.
I've done it.
I've done it.
I thought it was a weird question too. What does it matter?
Yeah, none of your fucking business. I'm hungry.
It was a way to get him to make a joke that there was no dinner.
Yeah.
But it doesn't
not
work
like-
because she would have had him eating something weird to make that work. You know what I mean?
Croutons are kind of weird.
It's weird enough, I guess, but it's relatable because we've all done it.
Right, so I don't think it's weird that if we've all done it, right? That's a pretty good census right there.
Well, I mean, also too, when he says the line like, "Oh, I'm not a dad, I'm a woo dad." We haven't seen him be a woo dad.
We haven't seen either of these people be good parents up to this point.
We haven't seen him do much yet, though, at all either, because it's 10 minutes into the first episode.
Him being a woo dad is like him being like, because they're young parents and he's the kind of guy who's trying to get free porn on his TV and watches people hook up in their cars.
I mean, both parents kind of seem to live their lives as if they don't have kids.
Right. Like they live separate from their children.
You could argue that they had to raise these kids, right? So like they've done their time, and so maybe they're just kind of taking their foot off the gas. But in this episode, it's like you guys know your parents, right? Because it doesn't seem like you do.
I feel like this is not a good time to take your foot off the gas, though, when your daughter is just going into high school. Like, it's going to be real deal parenting with your teenage high school kids. You know what I mean?
So to compare, right? So we're to assume that they're all in their like younger 30s, right? By
32.
from math of like things we shouldn't know about the episodes or future episodes, but even by the eye test, we know they're in like the younger 30s. So now to compare again, I mentioned we just did Charles in Charge recently. Now that same family, right? 3 kids, 2 parents. Dad is 35. He says in that episode he's 35. Look at the difference. Now, granted, we're talking a big time difference too because we're flashing forward like 25 years.
15
Is it? No.
is 84, so what, 17 years?
Yeah, 80. I thought it was 86.
It was.
I think it was 84.
It was 84 because I thought it was 82, but it was actually 84. Yeah.
86 is when like the second iteration of it started with a different cast.
So, like, yeah, 17 years, split the difference. And in any event, like, look at that father, 35, suited all times, very stoic, like the type of typical, like, adult figurehead, like, in the house. That
Neat haircut.
Yeah, and then you have him who's, like, very, I don't know, more someone that you could see hanging out with us, like, modern day. You know,
Right.
granted, generationally, like, things have changed a bit, but I think that's what when he's talking, like, I'm not a dad, he's like, I'm not wearing a suit and holding a briefcase and like, come on, kids, it's time for dinner. He's not like that kind of guy. So he thinks he's a little bit more fun so the kid can relate with him.
And we all learn that no matter what, you're still the dad.
Yeah, you're still going to be the dad. So there's no way around it.
Especially if it's a sitcom.
Because as our generations change, like the generations below us change as well. So like the standard kind of alters with time. But he goes on to explain, like, I don't want to be the thing that gets between you and your boyfriend. She's like, ew, like, he's not my boyfriend. He's Brad O'Keefe. He wears a fanny pack. Sorry, Gordo and Nick.
Nothing wrong with it.
Although Gordo's more genuine, Nick's just an outsider who wants to be a fanny pack guy.
I own it and I can't put it on. Like, I just
Why?
can't do it.
Why?
I can't
Why?
pull the trigger. I was in Las Vegas last week and I was like, if there's anywhere I can get away with wearing a fanny pack, it's Las Vegas.
It's either Vegas or Disney World. You can pull it off.
I clipped it on in the hotel room. I was like, I can't do it. Took it off, put it back in the fucking suitcase.
Nick, hear me out. This is how you have to get over it. Next time you fly for work, put all of your things in your pocket inside of the fanny pack. Then when you get to TSA, you unclip the fanny pack, you put the fanny pack in the thing, you take off your flip-flops, you walk right through like a
flip flops
boss.
either. Come on.
Now, everything you just said right there is horrendous.
Also, like, I have a backpack or a carry-on with me. Like, I would just put it in that. Like, I don't know. Listen, I'm in the wrong here. Like, I should be able to do it, and I can't. I just can't.
You're not
do
in the
it.
wrong here, Nick. I couldn't do it either.
I want to, though.
I have 3 fanny packs. I have a tactical fanny pack. I have,
For what? When do you need a tactical fanny pack?
I don't know, but I own one and it's huge.
It's when he needs to holster his flip-flops.
Yeah.
Well, you never know when like I could be hiking in like a strip mall.
You would know.
What does your wife think of these?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, she is European. I feel like it's more accepted over there, right?
That's true.
So actually it gets even worse when I'm in Europe because I actually have a man purse so that people don't mistake me for
A boy.
being an American.
Oh, because you don't want to be looked at as a tourist. But then you open your mouth and you're clearly from America.
Yeah, what do you pretend you're deaf?
Mark Maron robbed in Poland.
Somebody robs you thinking you're Mark Maron and thinking they're going to get a fuck ton of money. Instead, they get a fanny pack with $1.75 in it. And they're just like, God damn it.
and a half a pack of Winston's. Yeah.
Yeah. These Pall Malls are stale.
What?
If you were out with Gordo,
Yeah.
would you feel better wearing a fanny pack if he was wearing one with you, or does that make it worse?
So I've been in this situation before. Our friend wears them like very casually. Like when they like we go out to dinner or something like that. His wife hates it, and I'm like, but I respect the fucking gusto behind having the balls and the lack of self.
Loathing.
Yeah, that goes with it, right? And like I shouldn't care about doing it, but I just can't do it. I can't. But all right, I would say this though, Jade. To your point, if more than one person was there with it, so I would have to be at least the third.
Okay, so again, I have 3 fanny packs. I'll wear the tactical one, and maybe we could get like S1E1 tactical patches because we can.
Oh, I was gonna say maybe patches. Yeah, I'm not gonna make S1E1 fanny packs.
Yeah, you can put the patch on the fanny pack.
I feel like it's weirder if you had like one person in the group wearing a fanny pack. I don't think I would notice if like a bunch of people walk by. But if like 5 people were all wearing fanny packs and walked by, then I'd be like, wait, what's going on?
Okay, because here's the flip side of that. Because what are you going to do? You're going to say something and then run the risk of getting beat up by 5 guys wearing fanny packs? No, nobody's taking that risk.
Do you know what the hard thing for me would be? It wouldn't even be wearing it, which I just couldn't do. I'm with you, Nick. The hard thing for me would be at the store where they're like, okay, that'll be $17.35, please. Having to like thrust my crotch open and go zip and then pull all my stuff out. Like, no, I can't do it.
That's
Yeah.
the
I'm like
best
too
part.
George Costanza. Like, I need to have a wallet.
The wallet's in the fanny pack.
Yeah, that's a bit. I hate that so much.
Joe, listen, I have 3. I can lend out 2. Nick, if you have 1,
I actually have 2. I have one that I bought for like we did like an 80s party and I wore it for that. And it's like a nice like rock style leather one. Yeah, I don't know, man. Well, it would have to be extenuating circumstances for me to get it on.
no. We're S1E1. We're getting the S1E1 wagon. We're driving up to Maine, and we're all going to take pictures with the fanny pack.
All right, I'm in. Let's do it. Moving on.
Yeah, so anyways, to get back into the show, she's explaining how he wears a fanny pack and goes into like a few other things that she doesn't like about him and calls him a geek. And then Sean's like, well, if he's such a geek, then why are you like, what were you doing in the car with him? And she's like, I just wanted someone to notice me. And he's like, what? Plenty of people notice you. And she says, well, not when she's around, and glances over to her mother. Before we even go further, I wanted to mention, I don't know if you guys feel the same. I felt like Lily she overacts a little bit. I don't know if it's overact, but it's the way she like speaks doesn't seem to fit. Like something seems odd about like her dialect.
No, I thought she was fine.
I didn't pick up on that really.
It felt theatery to me. That was the thing. It felt like, I've said this with other people, like it felt like theater acting.
A couple years after this in 40-Year-Old Virgin, I feel like what's her face who plays the daughter is taking some cues from her though.
Oh, Jay loves her. I forget her
Yeah,
name.
you love this girl.
Kat
Jake.
Dennings?
Yeah.
Love Kat Dennings.
I feel like her in 40-Year-Old Virgin is acting like Lily in this show.
Huh. I don't know. We do need to cover Two Broke Girls at one point. We haven't, that's on the,
That's one I'm dreading covering.
It's like the fanny pack of TV shows.
I think it'll be a fun one to cover.
I'm drinking on that episode.
She tells her mom that she's always walking around and like flaunting it and that nobody else even notices her when she's around. Claudia's kind of like speechless. She like pauses for a moment with this like shocked.
Did anybody else go, oh, yes, please cut back to her flaunting it? Because I was very eager for that. And then they did. I was like,
Yeah,
yes.
of course. At this point, yeah. We flash back and we see like these slow motion shots of like her walking to a car, and there's like, she's in like a small black dress. There's all these kids outside playing like roller hockey. And there's like the shot of her like going to bend down to like get into the car, and like they do the close up of her chest and stuff. And these kids like get into a pile up because they can't focus while they're skating.
This is basically just the Stacy's Mom video by Fountains of Wayne happening in this episode. Just like it cuts to it for 2 seconds.
And then like there's one of her like going like she's giving her daughter her school book in front of the school, which they didn't really do much with that one, like other than the boys were noticing her, but she didn't really do anything extra except maybe the way she walked away at some point. But
Didn't she like give like a little like toodaloo?
a little bit, yeah, but that wasn't as much as like her like bending over and showing her cleavage to a bunch of boys playing roller hockey.
And putting the hose into her mouth.
The next,
Holy
the
shit.
next one is them doing like, it's like the car wash thing. She's washing her car out in the middle of the street. And yeah, and all the boys are watching. And then she like gets the hose and she's like spraying her chest with it and stuff. Like that's like we said before, when we get these flashbacks, the flashback is always from the perspective of the storyteller.
Yeah.
So it might not be accurate when
It's
they
a
do
little
it,
more
which,
dramatic every time.
yeah. So like, and I actually like that every time, like, you know, when we go to the car scenes, like when Lily tells the story, things happen differently than when Sean's telling the story. So obviously when she's talking about things her mom does, like, was she actually spraying her chest with the hose and putting it in her mouth? Probably not.
I mean, it's an interesting perspective too, because if you think of like writing for TV, that's the point of it, is to make things that were at least semi-interesting more interesting. Only they kind of let you into it here. You know what I mean? Like even like stand-up comedians. That's things are not really happening to these stand-up comedians, but they embellish.
I was at the store yesterday, but no, you weren't.
Yeah.
It didn't happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like how they did this. It was different, at least. It's not just the same sitcom over and over.
During that hose part, that's when like Claudia cuts the flashback off. It's like, whoa, hold on. There's nothing sexy about scraping gnats off of station wagons. And she's like, well, it is when you're working it. And then that's when like, you know, Sean's like, ooh, you were working it? And he's like acting very, I don't know, very childish the way he kind of like went with that. But
I will say though, I'm glad that his reaction to this was not that he was like mad at her.
He was stoked about it. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's like, I've got the hot wife in the neighborhood or whatever, the hot mom. Like I would have been really bummed out if it cut to like what you expect it to be with like, oh, you're walking around flaunting in the neighborhood, like no wife of mine. Like I'm so glad they didn't take that tact with it.
no, because it's more in line with them being more like immature,
Yeah.
fun parents, right?
Yeah, but also, I mean, that's the kind of thing that you would yell at a significant other of yours when you're younger and very immature too.
Yeah.
Like insecure. It's more about when you're insecure at that point, yeah. So he's like, oh, this has nothing to do with me being a bad dad and everything to do with you being a leggy siren who destroyed our daughter's self-esteem. Now let's go eat.
I like that line.
I liked it. I thought he delivered that pretty good.
He's very accepting of being able to pass the buck very quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, he constantly does. So for the rest of the episode, every time he can mention but her, he does it all the time. So Lily walks off and then Claudia goes to get her, but Sean stops her and flips that conversation that they were having earlier. Don't go after her because, you know, anything you do will be wrong because you're her mother. And, you know, so she's like, oh, very funny, like flipping that conversation on him. And now Eddie walks up to the two of them and Sean's like, hey, guess who the neighborhood hot mom is? Woo! And I thought that was, I was like, is he on coke? Like, why is he going this crazy?
To be fair, though, I feel like his character is very likely on coke through the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it's very possible.
Yeah.
Because he's very excited to tell his brother how hot his wife is in front of her.
Like his brother doesn't have eyes.
Yeah, but to find out that she's officially the neighborhood hot mom, though, that's quite a feat. And because Eddie's like, oh, well, she'll never be Mrs. Del Vecchio. Again, now, like, Sean's like, ooh, Mrs. Del Vecchio, ow, Mrs. D. And he's like jumping up and down and like holding his hands up to signify that she had a big rack.
I feel like he's coming from the, according to Jim's school of like reactions in this episode, like, cool.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for you to do it. But yeah, he's like, he got really hyped up in the scene. He got really goofy, though, like very silly in this scene.
Like too silly.
Yeah, a little too much. And Claudia asks who that is, and Eddie's like, well, she was the hottest mom in all of Staten Island. And then, big shock here, we get a flashback scene. And now it's Eddie with like the super mullet, you guys were talking about earlier. And he's helping Mrs. Del Vecchio bring groceries into her house. And when they get to the door, he's like, hey, it's hot outside. You think I could come in and have a glass of lemonade? She's like, oh, sorry, we don't have any. He's like, yes, you do. It's right here in the bag. She's like, oh, well, we don't have any clean glasses. And she goes to shut the door on. He's like, wait, you think I could come in and have a bath?
Something is always so funny to me about being like, we're going to get these people to play kids, and the joke is to not make them actually look like kids.
Yeah.
Because the joke of somebody being like 35 and doing it is so much better.
Because, yeah, you could have had like a kid play him, but instead you have
Right.
the same actor do it and like just put a wig on.
Way funnier.
When he asks if he could like go in and take a bath, she starts like screaming at him in Italian. I think it was Italian.
She's Italian, yeah.
She shuts the door on him, and then from like outside, you just see him on the porch licking the door.
He licks the door.
I audibly went, ugh, when
Yeah.
he did that.
I love too that he's like, she's got to be 60 now, but she wouldn't close the door on me now. Like,
Yeah.
I was waiting for the scene of him to leave and like go find her because they're in the same neighborhood, you'd assume.
Yeah, like that actually would have been a funny cut scene. Like if like there was a transition of like, say Sean and Claudia chasing each other from one room to another, and you see him off on the side of the phone, like, hey, Mrs. Del Vecchio, it's me, Eddie,
Or even looking at a phone book and saying like, Del, just so you
Yeah.
get the idea he's going to do it.
From the flashback, we cut back to Walt, who enters the kitchen, and he starts yelling out the window into the yard, and he's telling Sean and Claudia that this is what happens when you don't spank. And the two boys who were, asked to dig a hole, apparently tunneled their way out of the yard.
Like Oz.
We get like a flashback again, and it's like a minor flashback. It's probably to like moments earlier, but you see like the hand reaching out of the grass and like the two of them like climbing out of the hole that they dug. Like, and I assume they're in like Brad's neighbors.
Yeah, like that would be
house
Brad's backyard.
I was like, man, this fucking guy's gonna be pissed. He's already mad at Sean, and now like the two kids just dug a giant hole.
Giant
in his
hole in
yard.
his backyard. I feel like the missed opportunity here would have been to have it be raining and have them do the Shawshank Redemption thing. Like they like get up and put their hands in the air and they come out of the tunnel.
They could have did that. The way that they do these cutscenes where they're like not 100% factual, they could have done that without having to explain the rain all of a sudden. It could have just
Right.
been for that scene and then get out of it. And then when it gets back to it, it's just Sean going, oh, they got away from you, huh? It's like, shouldn't you just be concerned that your two children just ran out of the, like, you don't know where they are now. Like, there should be a little concern there.
They've gotten out before, they'll come back.
But they're old enough, though. They don't.
No, they're not old
No,
enough.
those kids are young. Like if it was the 14-year-old, you're like, oh, well, that's like, on the bordering of being an adult. The like 8-year-olds probably shouldn't be roaming the neighborhood at night.
We were walking around at 8 and 10. We knew our way around.
They were playing Floor is Lava. It's
yeah,
like
I don't think we were doing that at 8 and 10.
one of my 6-year-old niece's favorite games. You know what I mean? Like that's that they're not old enough to like be out of the house unsupervised.
You're not the fun dad.
Yeah, no, I'm not a woohoo dad. Walt says, oh, don't worry, they're just like in the next house over, and that they should be able to hear him. And he yells out the window that the belt is going to be coming off. And they tell Walt, that they're dealing with Lily right now. Like, they're not as concerned with what's going on with the two boys. And he tells Sean that this is his fault for never having the talk with her. And Sean's like, oh, I remember when you had the talk with me. It was quite educational. Flashback again.
This is very reminiscent of the talk that I got.
Was it really?
Yeah. It's basically just my dad for about 4 minutes.
Did anybody else not get the talk?
I didn't get
It's such a trope. I never got the talk. And you know what? I'll never speak highly of public school systems, but health class did a good job.
Health class taught us a surprising amount, and we went to a pretty bad school.
Yeah, I mean, it was because of health. Like, I knew how to put a rubber on and shit like that. Like, I feel like you're just, unless you're like stupid.
A rubber, condom, Joe.
A what?
You have to wear them until you're 18, and then you don't have to anymore.
That's true. I've learned that in health too. You kind of know after you're like 12 how people get pregnant. You don't need to be told that in high school, right? Like, you just need to know how to do it safely. And that was like the talk. Like,
My talk was like 4 minutes and it ended on herpes, and it was like, it's over now, right?
Plus, it's like less awkward because in health class, when we all had to take turns putting condoms on the teacher, it was like, if it was with your dad, it would be so much more awkward.
That's a good point. Yeah, that was weird.
And you know what? Bless those poor teachers who have to teach a bunch of 14-year-old boys about sex. Like, that's got to be like a shot in your desk at the end of the day type of gig. You know what I mean? Like, what a bunch of dickheads kids are.
Do you
at that
remember
age.
being in like, was it 8th grade when we had to watch the Miracle of Birth video?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I don't know if I was sick that day, but I'm like the only person who's never seen it.
Burned into my brain.
Yeah.
Because like as kids we're like, oh shit, we get to see fucking lady parts in school. And then, but it's not the fun way. 'Cause it's like, Nick, it's legitimately just a shot. Like, they put a camera in between this girl's legs, and you watch a full on birth.
Yeah, it's like a birthing video.
It is.
Why do you need to see that at that age? You don't. You don't need to see
I don't
that.
It's a
think you
lot.
do. Well, the thing is, like, it's the stupid thing about that is to show it to like boys, right? Like, it's not going to shock you because you still don't have to. The idea of being a parent is scary or whatever, but you don't have to go through that. So you can be like, well, that looks terrifying anyway, because it's never going to be something you have to do. You know what I mean? So it seems like an almost weird waste to just like I don't know, you're trying to scare the kids of that one.
Instead, they're just fucking up kids, and then you end up with people like Jay's weird Instagram algorithm.
between Jay and Gordo's algorithms, somebody should be in jail. I have no idea what's wrong with the two of you.
I just like, I'm very entertained by like very odd videos. I like that Joe's algorithm is just like old records and shit. That's like probably all that pops up on his.
Yeah, mine is. Well, no, it was only that until you fucking idiots constantly sharing stuff. So now it's things like old records and then nothing like it. Like, why? Why is this happening?
No, well, the funny thing. Well, I think I have so many friends like the Gordos, and my brother shares very different things. But I have so many different people who just send you videos all day long. And you just like, so you watch all this weird stuff, and now it's like, Instagram doesn't know how to collect its thoughts about what you like anymore, so it just shows you.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. That is your real life algorithm. The people you associate yourself with that send you that shit is your real life algorithm.
It's the idiots you actually know. Yeah.
So it does. It kind of puts into perspective how weirdly good Instagram is at sending that shit to you.
I will say though that makes sense, but they seem to be very bad at the shopping ones.
If you think about Googling something like headphones or whatever, it's all you see for a month. It's insane.
Right. But the like predictive ones where it's like, oh, do you want this? You're like, wait, what? No, why? Like the amount of like weird clothing things.
I wish there was just like a button that you could click that says, I already bought it. Like, stop showing me, stop showing me the headphones. I bought the headphones. You don't have to advertise every brand of headphones now. I have some. Or you get the targeted ads that are super targeted, like, don't mess with me. I'm an Italian from Boston that was born in 1986. Like, what? Like, what is this shirt?
Someone found my medical record.
Like, this seems oddly specific.
For a while, we bought a new bed like 2 months ago or whatever. So I was looking for mattresses everywhere. So then that was all the things I got. And then like one day I got nothing but those chili sleep ads, which are like the bed that's supposed to cool you down. And then ads for sheets that are supposed to make you warm at night. And like, I couldn't figure out like what broke the algorithm. It was like, is this like having a humidifier and a dehumidifier on at the same time? Like, why would you get a cold mattress and warm sheets?
It's a very specific lane of human.
I like it lukewarm.
Yeah.
To get back into this birds and bees talk that Walt's trying to have with his son, it's like he's doing like the whole, he has his hands out and it's like, so you got the sperm and the egg and he's very nervous, and he's doing a terrible job. But he's like, am I making myself clear? And then it cuts over to Sean, who's holding his daughter in his arms. He's like, yeah.
That's such a great button on that joke that he's holding a kid already.
I did like that. And so now we flash back to Walt modern day, he was telling him that like his chicken throwing approach didn't do him any good. And Sean tells his dad that it's not his fault, it's his super vixen wife's. He's like, and then like the two of them are, oh yeah. Well, at least I didn't ruin the battery charger by putting non-rechargeable batteries in it. He's like, that's all you got. That was 2 years ago. It's not even relevant. It was stupid. I thought it was stupid, but then like when you think about it, it's relatable because sometimes that happens.
When you think about arguments like that, you'll get the dumbest shit thrown in your face. And
That's a relationship argument all day long. Yeah.
Yeah, it is one of those like, I need something right now. So
That's a guy is right argument thrown right back
Yep,
at your face.
we don't get many of those.
No, we don't get many.
you're trying to just score a point now. Like you're like, shit, I'm losing, but I don't want to get shut out. So I at least gotta like, I'll take the field goal. Yeah, they're going back and forth and having this conversation. And while that's happening and they're talking about the battery charger, Lily walks downstairs and Sean stops her. He's like, where are you going? And she's like, well, why don't you just follow me like you usually do?
She's wearing a bedazzled t-shirt that says princess on it.
Yeah, I feel like they were going for like she went upstairs to dress kind of slutty, but then like, but she didn't. Like it's like a long skirt and a hoodie.
They didn't commit enough to it. Yeah, they didn't make like, I think that was the intent, but they didn't do it obvious, like enough for the common person to catch it as they're watching it. Sean's like, he's diverting it again. He's like, you know, with the mom. That's when the mom's like, well, just because like I wore shorts doesn't mean like you can blame me for her promiscuity. And Lily's like, promiscuity? Like I should be so lucky. She's like, well, your father he saw what? Just another pathetic chapter in my pathetic life. And then we got another flashback. So now we're back to the car. And this is like Lily and Brad in the car from the chicken scene again. Only it's like the beginning of it. So we're back in the car during that whole chicken scene from before with Lily and Brad. And it's she's like trying to be sexy and see if like Brad will kiss her. And she asks him like outwardly, like, are you gonna kiss me? And he's like, oh, yeah. And then he goes in and he gives her like the kind of kiss you would give your mom when you're going to school.
Yeah, he like pecks her.
And then she's like, well, maybe you should do something with your hands. He's like what? It's like, I don't know, something. So he like goes to like grab her head to kiss her again, but he had like Cheeto dust on his hand.
Oh, this really bummed me out.
She's like, oh, now there's cheese in my hair.
To be fair, she's a redhead. You wouldn't notice it.
It wouldn't be too noticeable.
The idea of like trying to do anything, like I'm a man who loves a good cheese doodle. I only have them a couple times a year because it is such a nightmare. It's the dust is everywhere. You have to wash your hands to do anything.
To be fair, they do make on like Wish and Amazon, they make like the chopstick.
Yeah, I've seen that.
You can pick them up.
Are there doodle chopsticks?
If you got, well, listen, I wouldn't do either, but if you really wanted, put a latex glove on or something. If you really want to just go to town on a bag and just take the glove off after.
No, because then your cheese is going to taste like latex.
Yeah, those gloves have a taste like a...
You get the non-powdered ones. They have like...
That just means they're not powdered on the inside. They're still made of latex.
People do it when they eat like hot wing competitions, put like the gloves on.
Yeah, but when you're eating hot wings, though, you're not eating it for the flavor.
Yeah. Wait, real quick. Cheetos, doodles, or cheese balls?
I like Cheetos. I actually had some Cheetos
I like
yesterday.
the crunch of a Cheeto.
Crunchy Cheetos.
The like the puff of like the ball and the doodle almost makes me feel like I'm chewing on styrofoam, and it kind of weirds me out.
It's a little styrofoamy, but I'm a doodle man.
I don't dislike them. Like, you know, I'll fuck with a bag of Jacks. Yeah, I don't know. I prefer the crunch of the Cheeto.
I think my number 2 would be cheese balls, though. Those are fun.
The cheese balls weirdly seem to go stale very quickly, though. I don't know what it is about
Never been a problem. I'll crush a jug in one sitting.
Oh, see, I can't do that.
It's one of those, I don't know. I also like, I don't know, Cheetos has other things. Like, I like the jalapeno ones, but I think the Flaming Hot, by the way, is like the most overrated snack food. And I like spicy everything. We've talked about that. I eat everything hot.
Real quick, Gordo just got up. Is he coming back with some? Oh, he's coming back with an actual doodle. That's what he's doing. But psst.
Well played.
There you go.
This is Doodle.
For those of you listening, Gordon's not holding his dog.
Doodle, say something for the audience.
She doesn't really talk, right, Martha?
I think the parents acted fine.
All right, anyways.
I'm going to tell you all his secrets.
I start fires.
I like cheese. I like the crunchy ones, but I don't mind the puffs every so often. Sometimes I get in the mood for a doodle.
I think there's room for, I think if you like one, you probably like all of them.
But you can comfortably eat those?
Which ones?
Any of them?
Yeah, they're all just corn.
Oh, Joe.
But the cheese dust doesn't get you?
No, I have no issues with cheese.
He's not lactose intolerant.
Oh, okay. That the Cheez-It thing got me then, because I always thought it was because of the cheese, but it's because of the gluten. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's because they're made out of wheat.
So wait, what's the Cheez-It problem?
They're wheat based, so there's gluten.
The wheat-based? Oh.
Yeah. And instead of making gluten-free ones, is every fucking month they're like, pizza flavor with salsa on top. You're like, stop making so many fucking Cheez-It flavors nobody fucking wants.
The hot and spicy ones are great.
I like the well done ones.
I like the extra toasty ones, but I don't like to fuck with Cheez-Its, original and extra toasty.
I'm really I always love, like, the best thing ever when you got a Cheez-It, like, you had a box of Cheez-Its, you take a handful out, and you get, like, the 1 or 2 burnt ones, and you'd be like, oh my god, it's my lucky fucking day. And then, like, the minute I couldn't have Cheez-Its anymore, they were like, we heard your feedback, all the toasty ones. Like, motherfucker, why?
And Joe, I'll say this. I don't know if you can have them because you just said you could have like cheese puffs and stuff. Their new like puffy Cheez-Its if they are gluten-free, don't even bother.
Oh, they're gross.
Are they like the 3D Dorito?
No, they're just cheese puffs that are advertised as Cheez-It.
Oh.
But they don't taste like Cheez-Its, right?
Not remotely. Not even almost. They just taste like bad cheese puffs. So be warned.
Yeah, Goldfish did that a few years ago too, where Goldfish was like, we made gluten-free Goldfish. And I was like, hallelujah. And then they were just really bad cheese puffs. I was like, that's not the same thing.
Yeah.
We go on a lot of tangents and we try to monetize them a la, Omaha Steaks. I think we've talked about Cheez-Its on every other episode at this point, and we've never even breached the subject of...
Can you imagine the sadness if we got sponsored by Cheez-Its?
We just got tons of free Cheez-Its. Joe just feel like I'm done. I quit. Fuck you guys.
That would be my last day. I'd be fucking off this thing, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. Sorry.
I don't need that cruel irony in my life.
I'd feel so bad, but still gladly accept them.
I would be like Scrooge McDuck jumping into my Cheez-It pool.
Anyways, he's trying to admit, so now he has the Cheeto dust on his hand, so he tries to lick his hands and then touch her hair to get it out.
Now it's just
like,
Cheeto paste.
Oh god, this really bothered made my stomach turn. Also, that means that he was making out with her and he just ate Cheetos also. Like, everything about this is fucking awful.
She already says she's pretty big. He's pretty much starved for attention, so this is not a deal breaker with her. And he's like, can I touch your bra? She's like, I guess. Are you going to take it off?
He just wanted to play with her bra.
Touch a bra.
Yeah.
That's a funny thing because, like, usually when you're trying to get a girl to take her bra off, it's to see what's under the bra. He just thought he would touch the bra, but didn't want to have to be in a position where he was touching the breast.
Yeah, this kid's a little slow, I think.
Well, maybe he's just seen so many teen movies that he was like, there's no way I'll be able to unhook the bra. So if I ask her to take it off, I can avoid the most stereotypical teen comedy scene of all time.
I feel like I should, like, try that line on someone someday. Like, can I touch your bra?
Okay, thanks. See ya.
Well, are you gonna take it off? Whack.
So Jay, how did that first date go?
Yeah, when I have a black eye. All this sexy talk really worked because now they start making out. Then all of a sudden, he looks up and he notices, the dad, he said, someone's looking at us. And that's when you get the chicken toss again. So now we flash back forward.
Which is like the 6th time we've seen it in this episode.
They're like, yeah. And it's all different angles too. So they're not even using the same shot. So they had to like throw this bucket of chicken like 50 times.
Yeah, this is like a week's worth of shooting and like resetting shots.
And because they decided to put all that fucking rooster cum in the bucket, they have to clean the fucking window every single time they do the. If they just threw like regular fried chicken or fake fried chicken, that wouldn't have made the same amount of mess. It would be an easy pickup and reshoot. But because they want to smear stuff all over the window, they have to clean it every single time they reshoot.
That seems like a classic, like I just got out of film school and I got my first job on a TV show set. Be like, what are you doing all week? Be like, oh, I'm the guy who has to completely wash the car of greasy chicken for the 100 takes they had to do of this.
And it's fake chicken. It's just they add grease, so it's like the added mess of it all.
Yeah, I mean, it explodes. It explodes not in a way that chicken with bones would, and it looks like that's boned chicken.
But when we flash forward, she's telling her parents how her life sucks. And Sean's like, I know how it can be. All the boys thinking your mom's hot and everything. He's so excited about this. And she's like, how would you know? He's like, well, yeah, like my mom she was kind of horsey. And then he's like, God rest her soul. Like talking about how his mom looked like a horse. He says, you're much prettier than your mom was at your age. And you got it was quick. Like a couple people in the audience groaned.
Yeah, we were like, uh-oh.
They're like, ooh. And he's talking about, she had like these braces and this goofy Cyndi Lauper hairdo. And then she adds in this chunky Irish boyfriend with parachute pants and a Sergio Valente shirt.
That's a look right there.
What is, I didn't look it up. I didn't have time. What is a Sergio Valente shirt? What kind of shirt is that?
He's the designer. I don't know if she means a specific style of shirt. Let's pause this real quick.
I'm looking at it now. It's just an American clothing brand.
But does it have a distinctive look?
It's like what's coming up is jeans with like those like girls' jeans with like those detailed stitching on the pockets. It's very of that time.
I added 80s to the search and a lot of stripes and stuff.
I did
going
too.
on.
Yeah, it looks like a lot of patterns and some denim stuff.
Yeah, like baggy denim shirts with like doilies on the shoulders.
So he adds, look, Lily, you're getting hotter all the time and your mom's already peaked. I thought it was a little weird to tell his daughter that she's getting hotter all the time.
Or to say that a woman who's 32 is peaked, when we all know that that is incorrect.
No, we peak way younger.
You tell that to all the women I've talked about on this show.
We all as humans, let's all accept it. You know, as we, a bunch of men in our 30s, we've our better days are behind us already. We have so much more aging to do, but if you say lock yourself in time, you could pick any age you were, I wouldn't be like 36. Like, let's
36 wouldn't be the first one. I've thought about this before. You want a good age where you're not like so young that you're still like a kid or whatever, you know? You don't want to be like 21. Like, that's kind of a nightmare. This is kind of like the you want to be like Just for Men gel that just takes out some of the gray. Like
Yeah.
you want to be young enough that you're still like able to do it, but mature enough that you still could do the job. So maybe like 27, 28.
yeah, like I want my body to work
26.
26 would be good.
somewhere in that range.
Yeah. Especially now as we get older and like the older we get where it's just like everybody's like, you know, like things you like when you're a kid, you look up to baseball players and you're like, I want to be like him when I'm an adult. And now you're like that 12-year-old playing for the fucking Red Sox or whatever. You know, like everyone's so young as you get older. It gets to a weird gap.
Well, Joe, if you want to have the same amount of testosterone as Frank Thomas,
You look like you can still hit that ball so hard, Frank Thomas. Just keep him away from your wife.
yeah, she replies to all of those comments with, oh, thanks, honey, have another donut. And he's grabbing it like his shirt. And she's like, is this supposed to make me feel better? I'm scared of you and jealous of her. And from now on, I'm going to associate sex with having fried food hurled at me. How am I supposed to recover from that? I'm going to have scars with me for the rest of my life. And he's like, how would you like your own phone line? She's like, that'll work. And she like takes off.
When I mentioned in the beginning how this is like right at the cusp of things changing, that line.
I think this was like an entire episode of Full House at one point. DJ wanted her own phone line.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Because I want to say right around 2001-ish is when I'm getting my first cell phone.
It was later for me.
Later
I think I
for
was-
me, yeah.
I know I was a sophomore. We graduated in 2004. So 4, 3, yeah, beginning of sophomore year is 2001.
2002.
So like that's right when I got it.
I'm actually trying to think if I had one on 9/11, and I don't think I did.
I didn't, yeah.
I don't, that's weird
don't
actually.
remember.
That's a weird benchmark, but I don't remember at this point.
Because I feel like I would have remembered using it or getting a call from one of my parents or something like that, and I didn't.
Well, it's so funny now because I associate using my phone more with text.
Also, that is the very beginning of a school year, so I guess if later that
Oh,
year
yeah.
you got one, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, the first couple weeks. But I don't even remember a lot. I don't remember a lot of kids even having them in school that year. Like, if I remember 9/11, it was everyone just sort of talking. Nobody was like on the phone. And even if you could, it's not like you could pull up news or anything yet. Like, phones were just phones.
Honestly, not to pivot into too much of a 9/11 talk in the fun Grounded for Life episode, but I would almost think that right around that time is probably when a lot of parents who had kids around our age were like, maybe they should have a phone.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what kind of like sparked the, maybe we'll spend the money on
Maybe
it.
it's good to have a way to contact them.
I mean, the first time I ever got a cell phone was literally because I went to New York. I think I was junior year. I went to go play my first show in New York City. My parents were like, we'll let you go to New York, but you need to have a phone because you're a teenager and you're going to New York. It's like, that seems like a fair trade-off.
And then you held on for the next like 15 years using phones of that same style.
Yeah, I was a very late adopter of the smartphone.
My first cell phone was a Mitsubishi, who I don't think makes cell phones anymore.
I don't think so, yeah. Sprint?
Do they still make cars?
They do, yeah. My mom has a Mitsubishi, actually.
So now we cut to Eddie and Brad who are in the living room, and Eddie's like trying to fix the cable, and he's like, see anything? And Brad's like, I think that could be a nipple. He's like, that's a dog's nose. Such a
That was
weird
funny.
pivot. Yeah. Sean walks in and says that they need to talk. He's talking to Brad. And he's saying how, like, you know, all this stuff, with his daughter, like how it's not going to happen. He's like, but I think she really likes me. Yeah, but, she doesn't really like you in that way. But when I see her, I have all these feelings. I know, but you just have to face facts. Like, you and Lily weren't meant to be. He's like, Lily? I was talking about Mrs. Finnerty. Finnerty. I can't say her name. Finnerty?
keep saying it and keep trying because I want to have the
Finnerty?
reel of you just
Finnerty?
not saying her name.
Finnerty? It
Finnerty.
sounds weird.
Finnerty.
When I
Because
say-
you're thinking of like infinity, but it's Finnerty.
I think when I say it, like my brain switches the T to a D at the end, and I say Finnerty.
They all have Finnerty stones.
He's like, that's my wife, right? He's like, yeah. And he's like, you're not that smart, are you, Brad? To go back, when he first has this conversation with like, hey, Brad, we need to talk. Before the whole joke of, Brad liking his wife, not Lily, I was like, why is this conversation happening? It's like, it doesn't make sense for Sean to have to break the news to Brad that Lily doesn't like her in that way because it was never established that Brad likes her.
I thought he was just doing it to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, but the way he's talking to her, it's like, hey, man, she's just not into you like that. Brad was never like pining for her. That was never like established. So I didn't
That's
really
true, yeah.
understand. So it was like just this weird, like they wanted to just make the joke about the wife, but the setup didn't make any sense when you're watching it.
Yeah, I wasn't really. Yeah, I guess I didn't pay attention that hard. Yeah, that makes way more sense.
And again, this is what happens when you analyze these shows and you're like, wait a minute.
When you actually think about it, you go,
Yeah.
huh? All that's left is we have a credit scene. And so we have a scene actually while the credits are physically running over the video. So you can't just like skip, like when they do the fast forward credits, you can't do that because they're actually using a scene to play the credits. And it's Eddie finally gets the TV going and the two boys walk in and they're like filthy because, they were running through holes and stuff all day. And Eddie's like, hey, where's your grandpa? And they're like, oh, he still thinks we're down in the hole. We tied our flashlights to Mr. Durkin's cat. And then it cuts to grandpa like yelling down the hole saying like, you can't stay down there forever. And that, and then it cuts to like the perspective from the hole, like looking up
Like
at
the
the
cat's
grandpa.
perspective.
Yeah, like looking up at the hole and he's like trying to like reach in and grab and you just hear like the cat going like, rear, rear. And like he's still doesn't seem to realize that it's not his grandkids. And he's like reaching down there, fidgeting for them. It was a very weird, again, the grandpa doesn't work for me.
I feel like the joke worked a lot better if the thing that killed the joke to me was the cat noise. Like if he was just still assuming those were the kids down there and it was just 10 seconds shorter and it was just the flashlight, and he's like, you can't stay down there forever, that would have been funny. But then the cat noise kills it.
Or even if he just reaches his hand and he just gets like bit and you don't hear the cat, it's just like, and he just like takes his hand out.
One of those bastards bit me. Something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, just kind of a weird note to end it on. And also, so they just stole the neighbor's cat and threw it down a hole.
Yes.
Yeah, apparently.
Can't do that.
Don't love that. Yeah.
Not a fan of that.
But yeah, that was the conclusion of the episode. Yeah, I don't have a lot of things to say about it afterwards. Like I've definitely seen the show in bits and pieces over time. I don't know how many times I could say I ever sat and watched a full episode of it. I don't know. I don't have a lot to go with the show. It kind of was what it was. It was shot very interesting though.
Kind of in the same boat. I don't think I ever watched an episode front to back. It was always just on somewhere and I caught it and I thought it was interesting enough, but I never sat down to watch it. I don't think that this was like super readily available in syndication, was it?
I don't see it much these days, but I think that could be part of like where it ended on the WB. It's like one of those like networks that is like now defunct. So now their properties get like shuffled
Well, Warner Brothers is still a thing.
But the WB as a network like isn't. So now it's all like, where are these shows all? Like, did they own them? Are other networks buying syndication rights to it?
I think too, though, when it comes to syndication, we've talked about this with a few different shows. Where
and they, mind you, they did not hit 100 episodes. They were only at 91 episodes.
It's true. I mean, you still can do syndication at under 100. You just make more money on 100. But like when this show would have gone into syndication, we would have all been like 21. So again, it's that perfect time where you're like, you're just not home as much when you're 21. You're like working and then you're out doing stuff and then you're sleeping. That's like your whole life. There's not a lot of like TV.
Like in 2001, we're in high school and we're just not as focused on television at that point in time of our lives.
Even when it was on new, you're out hanging out with your friends and doing stuff.
Well, that's pre TiVo or maybe that's right around the rise of TiVo. But like we didn't have DVR. Sorry, DVR.
I didn't have it yet.
And this is, I think, right before too, like the on-demand cable where you could watch episodes the next day from the, Comcast on demand or whatever.
Ferg's not here today, but like Ferg had like a TiVo, like in one of the earlier incarnations.
Like the first version.
Ferg had like the first one.
Crazy now because like DVR is such commonplace, now we've even really evolved with streaming and everything. But when TiVos first came out, to like be like, what is this voodoo? Like I can't believe they've unlocked secret things TVs can do now.
Real quick, did you see that this show got canceled 3 episodes into the 3rd season.
Is that why it swapped to the WB?
No, so it moved to Fox, right? It went WB Fox or Fox WB?
Fox WB.
All right, because what I'm reading right now is Grounded for Life never found an audience. It was brought in as a mid-season replacement for a John Goodman sitcom called Normal Ohio.
Normal Ohio, yeah, I remember that.
But Grounded for Life aired out of order and was canceled 2 episodes into its 3rd season to make room for American Idol. American Idol killed this show.
Oh.
I like this show a lot more than I like American Idol.
Oh my God, yeah.
Early seasons, I fucked with American Idol.
I mean, American Idol, the first episode of every season where it was just them making fun of the people who couldn't sing, that was always enjoyable. But then I was done. I did not want to watch.
Yeah,
people
then the
sing
show just
after that.
became about the judges and not about the talent.
We wouldn't have Chris Daughtry if it wasn't for American
What a shame.
Idol.
Well, we wouldn't have Kelly Clarkson, and I do genuinely enjoy Kelly Clarkson.
Like her daytime show.
Yeah, mainly I don't care about her music so much, but she puts on a great daytime talk show. I just really like Since You've Been Gone.
I was gonna say I got this show confused with I guess what is the name of the show that the mother of Raymond did after Raymond that was a very similar premise to
The Middle.
this?
The Middle, yeah.
Okay, I thought that's what this was, and I was like, "Oh, this will be really cool."
Which was also very similar to Malcolm in the Middle,
Yeah.
regardless of the fact that the names are super close.
Yeah, that had to be by design, right?
I thought that was a bad idea. I thought Malcolm in the Middle was so popular and the show was so similar that naming it The Middle was like only going to spawn bad comparisons that they couldn't escape. We covered the whole episode, so at this point, there's really nothing left to do but do the old green light or cancel. Mind you, we're a 4-man today, so if we find ourselves in a tie situation, you're going to have to follow us at S1E1Pod on Instagram to find the graphic, and we'll eventually post the results later in the week, but you should be following that anyways. So go to S1E1Pod on Instagram, give us the follow button, and say hello. I'll message you back. Let's go ahead and do the green light or cancel. Nick, I'm going to start with you.
This is a green light. I had a lot of fun watching it. Found myself wanting to watch a second episode. Not without faults. The younger kids the storyline surrounding them was a little, the grandfather I'm still on the fence about. But the rest of the cast and the story was, really interesting. I liked how it was. I mentioned this earlier in the episode, but I liked how it's just it's different than your typical sitcom. It's shot differently. It's portrayed differently with all the cutbacks and stuff like that. It was refreshing, I guess would be the word I'd like to use. Definitely want to keep watching. I think it might be on my, nighttime list now. So we'll see what happens with it. And I enjoyed it. Green light.
Gordo.
I'm actually going to cancel this. For basically the opposite reasons of Nick, but I didn't like the way it was shot. I didn't like the dad. I didn't like the mom. Well, the mom was okay, but I just didn't like their characters. I was very pro grandpa, but just something about the way that there were too many flashbacks. There was just way too many to keep that story kind of moving. I liked Uncle Eddie. I liked the grandpa, but that was really kind of it. I'm sure the show does get better, but if I'm going to be honest and base it off of this one episode, that's about it. I have no desire to really see a second episode. So it's a cancel from me.
Joe.
Everything about Nick's review, except for the grandpa, I pretty much agree with. With Gordo, I'm pro grandpa, I'm pro whole. I'm kind of surprised I never saw more of this show, and I'm surprised I never made more of an effort to watch it. Especially, I really like a lot of the cast who are on this. Yeah, this is one of those shows that not only was I like, okay, I'm gonna rewatch this, and I'm gonna actually, I think it's streaming on Amazon now too. I was like, I'm gonna watch all of this, and one of those shows where I told my wife, I was like, I think you'll really like this, and we should add this to our list of next time we need to binge through something. And I think it says a lot when you can find a show like that too, where you're like, oh, and my significant other will enjoy watching the whole run of it too, because I think it's varied enough. I really, really actually enjoy this. Again, not without its faults, but yeah, this is a huge green light.
Well, what an interesting predicament we're going to be in, because I'm with Gordo
Dun, dun, dun.
and I'm canceling. So here's the thing. So I didn't hate it, but I'm watching it and I'm like, whatever. And I remember the first time watching, I was like, wow, that was a really simple story. When all was said and done, I remember messaging you guys and being like, this is going to be an easy one. And then I'm rewatching it and I'm taking my notes and stuff. And I'm like, it just seems so lazy. Like when I think about what the story actually is, it's like dad throws bucket of chicken at the car, Lily's upset. That's it. That's like what the whole episode's about. And they like the flashback cuts. I get that's kind of like of the time, but they relied on it way too much. I thought the dad was a little too immature. Grandpa's character wasn't for me at all. Really, I just want a spin off of Eddie. Like, just give me the Eddie show. Like just branch him off.
I'd watch that.
I thought he was great. I did genuinely I was very entertained by his character. Yeah, I didn't hate it, but, and I could see myself watching more. Like, if it was on, I wouldn't be like opposed to watching more episodes. But when I just dissect the pilot, for what I saw, it didn't stand out. Nothing really special about it. So I'm going to give it the cancel. So again, that means it's really up to Ferg for the tiebreaker here. So we're ending the episode on a cliffhanger. So go to our Instagram. Later in the week, it'll be up there. And we'll post the final results. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Sorry to Grounded for Life. I don't have an answer. You are in limbo until further notice.
That means it's just going to get moved to another network.
We're just going to have to sell it off to the WB until we know how we feel about it.
Replace Nick Freno, licensed teacher.
Of course. Thank you to everyone who listens. Again, go to s1e1pod.com. It's going to take you to all our links to everywhere we can listen, everywhere to subscribe. Be sure to give us a review. Really appreciate everyone who's been reaching out lately. Keep giving us suggestions for shows. We do listen to them. We try to hit them when we can. And it's great. The list is ever growing. And, I really want to hear more shows that maybe we have forgotten about. Trust me, some of the ones that have been recommended or on the list, we're certainly going to get to them. So start reminding us about some shows that maybe none of us would ever think to bring up. But that being said, guys, thank you for listening. Catch us again next week. We'll have another episode for you then. Take care, and we'll catch you next time. Goodbye.
I think we got the best princess shirt.
I think we got the best hole.